Holla Baholas! That feels so stupid when I'm doing a Patreon video. What's up, everybody? I finally got some time. It's Sunday night to sit down and talk to you guys, which has been really nice. Because it's been quiet on the Patreon for a little while. I'm really sorry because you guys are like vital to us. It was nothing intentional, but with PreachCon and stuff, it just gets like, everything just gets mounted up, as you can probably imagine. But now it's over, finally. It took more than a week to actually settle everything here. I was supposed to take tomorrow off, actually, to kind of rest. But that's not going to happen. It's just too much to do, which is fine because it's all good stuff to do. So I thought I'd do this video and catch up with you on where we are with stuff that's specific for you guys. So one thing we did get to do, which was our mission, as stupid as it sounds, was to go and see Spider-Man. Now, to put that into context, we're both super nerds. Andy literally has a sleeve of tattoos for superhero characters, and neither of us had been to see the new Spider-Man movie. We just didn't have time with PreachCon coming up to find 2 hours each to go and do it without giving up something. We'd have to like cancel raiding, or we'd have to not see our kids or something. It just wasn't feasible, especially with me working like day and night leading up to there. So now that's over, we were like, we're gonna go and see Spider-Man. Let's just go and see Spider-Man, and we went and watched that. So we've got a little audio of that coming. Not only that, we're filming another episode of Baited, and as you probably know, because I got to meet so many of you, we have another Legacy in the can, which now just needs its editing put together, which I'm going to get Andy on this week so you can get that out there, so we can just start speeding everything up again. Now we've got another year before PreachCon again. It seems to be going to be in the US next year, with a sort of UK finish. Is the plan. So we'll go and see some guys in the US. It seems like that might actually be some way of even making some money on PreachCon, because we'll be able to get our minimum stuff and visit lots of different places. It's not about the money, it never has been, but we've lost a hell of a lot doing PreachCon. It looks like if we do the US thing, as stupid as it sounds, because we can visit so many different states, that we might be able to be okay there and actually have it as something that's also rewarding to the business. So that's kind of interesting as well, and then come back into the UK and do a final show there. Not only that, we can hit so many more special guests. So the special guests this year were all gutted they couldn't come, especially after they saw the videos. They were like, fuck dude, fuck. But Mythic Tomb was the big nightmare there. Anyway, so that's where we're up to with that stuff, so I hope you'll bear with me for a few more days. I know the month's coming to an end and you're like, I haven't seen anything. I know. It's nothing intentional. Believe me, without you guys, we're pretty fucked at the moment. Although things have been much better. We've I don't know if you guys know, but in this month, or the month previous, we actually got a premium Twitch partnership, which is amazing. Our Twitch subs are just higher than ever, doing really well with streaming, more than I thought we would do, honestly. Like, it's been incredible. Like, the community we've built there has been on. It's like all these different communities now, which is really hard to manage because everybody's different. Like, the YouTube community is now so different to the Twitch community. It always has been, but it's now so much more prominent. And YouTube is back up as, like, going way back up, despite the fact that YouTube, like, earns us basically nothing now, because of the YouTube apocalypse, if you want to call it that. It doesn't seem to matter because just people are watching everything, especially the daily. People are really loving the daily, and it's such a... I can't even express to you how fun that is to make. It's so fun to make. I just pick whatever the hell I want to play and do whatever the hell I want to do and just have fun with it. And I think that's so much more important when you're making YouTube videos, is like if the guy doing it is having fun, you're having fun as well. And that comes across so much easier than when you're doing something that's maybe not that great, but you're still making an entertaining video. So maybe you're doing, I don't know, it's like, I guess, or a guide or something like that. I mean, I'm already bored of doing the guides. I'm going to do another video talking about the guides specifically, because I know you guys have seen how some of the theory crafters, and I'm being very specific there, the theory crafters have come at me, but most of you guys are actually old school and will know that that's not new. It's never been new. It's been since the day my guides took notoriety. I kind of want to say back in Kata, like midway through Kata, when the guides started to gain popularity. That's when the guys who were out to disseminate them into individual pieces came at them. So that's not new for us, but because we haven't done the guides for a while, it seems new to a lot of people. So I'm going to have to address that in some way. But what I did want to talk to you about today, I feel I have something on my chest. I have something on my chest, or a weight I've been carrying for quite some time on my shoulders. And there's not a really good place to talk about it other than here, I don't think. I feel like I can talk to you guys in a different way than I talk to my Twitch and YouTube audience, right? Because that's much more generalized. And I wanted to sort of get this out before PreachCon, because I didn't want to go into PreachCon with this on my mind, but thankfully, like, it was, everything about PreachCon was so overwhelming that it never even came to prominence again. And it's an issue that has been coming up with close friends of mine who were very, very happy to see us, like, understanding, firstly, like, when we said we weren't doing guides again, a lot of my close friends who are still rating at the very top, it's a top tier of the game, they were like, good, because we don't know how you're going to handle Legion. Which is the problem we've obviously run into in a lot of the guides, is Legion is a big can of worms the higher up you go, in terms of sorting your character out. I don't think we've ever had an expansion as much as this where sim yourself has actually been the correct answer. People will write huge articles on any website, like guide instructional articles, like huge, which they can modify on the fly, and at the very end of it says, ultimately though, sim yourself, right? That's the reality of the situation, is you need to run this through a fucking simulator to see if it's correct. We can give you the guidelines, we can give you the push in the right direction, but to get it right, you're going to have to do this. So they knew that. I knew that going in. I think I talked about it the day legendaries were announced for Legion. Like, before the alpha came out, before any of that, when the legendaries were announced, I was like, this fucks everything up so badly. Like, really, really fucks it up. And I got a lot of hate for that video, you probably remember. I think I talked about it in that video. So they were really happy about it. Anyway, but you keep asking about this cough. It's just lack of rest that hasn't got rid of it. I don't actually feel it. It's just a lack of rest. That's what the doctor told. I did go see the doctor a while ago, and he was like, "You just need to rest up a little bit." Which is, I'm not woe is meing or anything like that. I am going to take some rest at some point, but I want to get everything smooth sailing as it is now. Just very briefly, I know I tend to wobble in these videos with thoughts running into my head. That's kind of why they're different to my ordinary ones, where I've kind of got a bullet point guide of going through stuff. Is that I'm recording a lot of guides back to back, so Andy can plow through them and then free him up to create Legacy and other big videos throughout the week. We kind of got a good system going right now with me streaming and Andy working on stuff in the background, but he's now getting very proficient with the guides, so we can give him more to do. So I'm going to give him a big backlog and say, smash through those, then this is your new focus, which will be stuff you guys will see first. So that's kind of what's going to happen. Anyway, it's a phrase that I find so offensive that the guys who say it to me don't realise it at all. They really don't. They don't realise, and it's... many of you have probably... I don't know. Maybe you have, I'm guessing. But I don't think many of you have really experienced elitism in its true form. Like, for a lot of people, I'm elitist, right? I don't get it. You don't get it, probably, but whatever. But real elitism is a very different thing. Because real elitism, certainly if we just keep it within the borders of WoW without expanding it to the real world, is literally thinking that other people who aren't on the same level as you are literal dogs, like pieces of shit, like absolute trash, and you shouldn't be touching them. Imagine, like, if you do go to the real world, imagine like an upper class person who is asked for something by your average Joe and literally is like disgusted by their presence, right? That's kind of like WoW elitism, whether you believe it or not. If you've never experienced it, trust me, it is. And you won't really experience it face to face. You might think you do, but you only really understand the depth of this disgust when it's somebody of the high tier talking to somebody else of the high tier. That's when that conversation comes up. And it's extremely awkward for me, because I'm part of all these worlds, and I have been a part of the top end world for like 12 years. So I have a lot of friends up there who I talk to regularly, be it through Skype or whatever. And the phrase that I'm talking about that I find so offensive and has been on my, just like plaguing my brain to the point of rage, was, why do I bother? Why are you bothering? So what do they mean by that when they ask me? And this has come from multiple sources since we started the guides again. But not just the guides, actually. The main point of contention that a lot of these guys had was me running randoms, as far as they were concerned, through the Tomb from week 1, and doing that almost daily since Tomb came out, I want to say. I mean, some of you have probably watched every stream and will know exactly how many times we have run random newbies through the Tomb. Now, we also extended that to Heroic this week, which had no... I mean, if you haven't seen the stream, how I run my pugs is I say, look, there's a minimum item level we ask for, and it's just to make sure that you are appropriately geared for this content, as best as I can guess. So for normal mode, it's 890. If you're over 890, there's no discrimination, there's no further questions. I just bring you, and the way I do it is it's a first come first serve basis. I don't look for people to be specifically 890 or close to. I just say if you're 890 or above, you can come. So yeah, we do get some guys who are like 930, and we get all people who are like 890, right? We get a whole combination of people. And we've done that since the day Tomb came out. And as of now, besides the Heroic, which is fine, we have never not killed Jaden. Not one time. There's not been a single failed pug we did that didn't clear it. And that was by taking total strangers. Total strangers. And I'm very proud of that. So you can imagine my devastation, like real upsetting. Genuinely upsetting. I mean, really upset me to the point where I'm thinking about it lying in bed. When my friends come to me and they're like, why the fuck are you bothering doing that? Why would you do that? And it's because the message has kind of got mixed up over the last few years as to why I started my channel. And I go back to that and say, do you not remember why I started doing what I do? And they're like, no, but you... And even if they do, they're like, but that's changed now. You don't do that anymore. So why are you bothering now? Why wouldn't you just... And it's also like, I have no problem with Zach Asmon. But Asmon is very picky about who he takes. And you get compared to that, despite the fact that it's a world of difference, right? It's a world of difference between like clicking through, and Andy runs his pugs that way because everyone's free to run their pugs however they do it. But Andy's not an educator. He's not out to try and teach people how to do things and to try and guide them through content. So Andy will take the highest geared people he can possibly get, whereas I will just go first come first serve and just right down the list, and I'll say, right, I'll get you through this. I'll put you on Discord where you can hear my voice immediately. And I do a very sort of, what I call the spoon-feeding style of raid leading. And that's not offensive, by the way. That's how the best raid guilds in the world do it. So you can look at Method videos and realise that's how Kuznam raid leaded for Method and Serenity, and how Scripe is raid leading Method now. Is just to be talking people through the fight constantly. Even though they probably know what's happening, it's just constantly just very calming, very relaxed, but talking everybody through the fight on a moment-by-moment basis. And it's something that Shade, one of the tank from my guild, has now started to use since I started doing it. I noticed on Mistress, he'd started to do the same thing. It's like, okay, in 10 seconds, you're going to be wanting to close the Devouring Maw, so get yourself in position for that. And it's a really nice, calming way of raid leading, where you can take people who have no understanding of the fight and people who have 100% understanding of the fight, and just make sure everything gets done to the point where the boss dies. And that's why we've had such great success. So the why do you bother question really upsets me, because the answer is really obvious. It's like, I wish with everything inside me, and I tell them this, it's like, I wish with everything inside me during vanilla, somebody would have done that for me. That's it. And I always try to say, think back to when you started this game. You might be the hot shit now, right? You might be the hot shit right now. You might be one of the best in the world. But that's not where you started, and it never was where you started. And it probably took a long time to get there, unless you got some peg up from somebody like me to kind of just push you ahead or put you on the right path and tell you to tell you things like LFR is a massive waste of your time. You might spend hours in there every week. It's a huge waste of your time. And trying to spend hours finding a mythic group instead of spending hours finding a guild so you never have to do that again is a massive waste of your time. But I know if I started WoW now, I would be in that trap. I would be like, well, I would be in this mindset I'm sure many of you can accommodate with, which is, I need better gear because I can't get into the pugs. I don't have a guild. I can't get into the pugs because they want higher item levels, so I need to get better gear. So I need to run LFR and maybe hope for some Titan Forging. I'm playing a DPSer, I can barely get into Mythic Plus because there's always somebody higher item level who's getting in there, so I need higher item level. How am I going to do that? I'm going to run what content I possibly can, which is going to be early Mythic Pluses with very little chance of actually getting an upgrade. I'm going to be running maybe some normal pugs if I can get in, or LFR, and just hope and praying. And you're spending months of time, and some people it's even years at this point, years of time trying to constantly catch up to where you need to be to start. Not to like be, okay, I'm good now, but to start. And if you don't live in that world, and you live in the world that I live in on my main character, right? So I basically look at my characters very differently. For my main character, he lives in a different world than all my other characters live in. For my character, none of that ever has mattered to me since the Burning Crusade, if not mid-vanilla. So we're talking like 11 years. How geared my character was, his achievements, his progress, has never mattered to in anybody I've ever played with. Think about that for a second. It has never come up with my main character. Because I don't play with people who would ever question that. They want me to come. And they have done since 11 years ago. They have done since then. They just be like, we want Mike to come. Not his priest or his... Like, if I was playing Alt, it didn't matter. It never mattered. You see it in the day, it's like, I want to see you do really high-level keys. I do really high-level keys. But I do really high-level keys because they're just appropriate for my main character. I also don't do it in a pug. Why would I? It's crazy. I just do it with my friends. And we stomp through it, and it's easier than the Mythic 7s and 9s that I put up on the Daily Breach. It's easier for me. So that's the world that they live in. And they can, then they look at, like, I know I'm drifting a bit here, but I'm trying to put it into context. It's like, when Tomb of Sargeras came out, my guild crushed Heroic in such a way that it was essentially like LFR. Now, I want to be real on this. My normal mode pug of appropriate geared players that I did during the day was magnitudes more difficult than my guild found the entirety of Heroic Tomb of Sargeras that evening. We cleared it in half the time. The bosses just fell over. We didn't understand half the mechanics. In fact, what was really interesting is that it was such a walkover that by the time we got to kill Jaden, my guild made some of the same mistakes that my pugs did. Like moving out of Armageddons and things like that. And I was kind of chuckling to myself because I was like, I know you guys think so little. Some of them, not all of them. My guild's actually full of really, really nice people. But I know there are people in there who look at people who do normal mode only as just shitters, right? There's always people like that when you're at our level. Yeah, you're making the same mistakes. You are. You're making the same mistakes those guys did. And in some cases, more so. So once I started doing the pugs specifically, and people would tune into it, you know what's interesting you should do sometimes is look who's watching the channel. I know there's like over 1,000 or 2,000 people in there, but have a browse through every now and again, and you'll see some names that you fucking recognise. And then I get messages from them after, it's like, why the fuck are you doing that? And I find it so upsetting that that's the mentality. It's like, why would you play with those people? But it's a pretty widespread thing. The higher up you go, it's a pretty widespread thing. And it really made me question, like, why it upset me so much is that I have to be a part of both of these worlds. If I want to enjoy the game as I enjoy the game, I have to be a part of both of them worlds. I have to live in the top-end world that looks and play in that top-end world. That occasionally, very occasionally, and I'm not talking about my guild, I'm just talking about with any random people, there's a comment that comes out about people who do normal or heroic and stuff like that. And I kind of have to keep my mouth shut because it's like, that really upsets me because during that day, I saw guys who had never raided before properly or never been given the chance learn and do these things properly and understand why. Partly because I explained it clearly and I calmly walked them through it and I showed them what's going on and I'm like, explain the fight as it happens. And those guys were like sponges. And the way the game is, if it wasn't for like people like me, and I know there's many other pugs across Twitch or whatever, if you're not doing that, those guys never get to experience that and they're just considered shitters for the rest of their lives. But I saw those guys be like sponges and just willing to wipe over and over again. Like, it doesn't really happen in my pugs. It's people leaving after wipes. It never really happens. I can't recall a time that's happened where we like had a couple of wipes and we're like, oh, well, I'm out. It doesn't happen, and it's because I'm happy with people making mistakes. I had a pug recently where both tanks had never done Kill Jaden. So we kill Fallen Avatar. I sound really emotional, but I am, because let me explain to you. So the tanks were like, we know Kil'jaeden's really hard, and this guy whispered me first off. It was when my face cam was covering the chat, so he felt okay to whisper me. And he's like, I don't know what to do here. Do you want to get somebody else in? I'll leave. And I'm like, no, you stay put. And he's like, I don't want to screw this up for you. I'm like, look, this is where you can screw up. This is the fucking place. And he was like, are you sure? I'm like, bro, this is the best place you can make mistakes. Because I ain't going to fucking freak out on you. I'm not going to rage at you, but what I will do is tell you where you went wrong and where you can get it better. And I want to see you stood here when Kil'jaeden dies. And if you don't know, Kil'jaeden is the only real tanking challenge in terms of surviving in the Tomb. There's some other tanking challenges like Avatar movement and stuff, but in terms of like you need to live here, Kil'jaeden's the first one that does that. And he hits you like a fucking truck. Nothing else in Tomb matters like Kil'jaeden does for raw being able to tank. Which is something that's been missing for a little while. It's like, I need to tank this properly. And sure enough, they died. And I was like, I'm not sure what to do here. I'm like, okay, let's have a look at your talents. And we went through it. And I was like, okay, change this to this. Now, think about what's coming up. And then have a plan in your head. And I talked him through the whole thing. And 2 pulls later, we went from soul stoning the tanks on the second pull to me being able to say, let's combat res some other people. The tanks are fine. And the whisper I got afterwards from this guy, he was guildless. Like, one of these tanks was guildless. And he was like, thank you so much. Just giving me the chance to fuck up. Just give me the chance to fuck up. Now, what's ironic about this, as these guys in the top end are like, why the fuck would you bother with those people? Why would you, like their ants and stuff like that? Is, thankfully, like, with the more prominent style, particularly in Tomb, of the top end guild streaming, sorry, I'll have to do it, future do it. I think there's a real appreciation now for just how hard and how many mistakes get made at the top end. And this belief and this illusion that once you've reached like the high tiers of the game, it's like everything kind of just runs flawlessly and it should all work. And it's just not true. It never has been true. The difference is learning from those mistakes and getting up and trying again. Which is where a lot of people fall down, because it's like, oh, we wiped here. And if your experience has only been LFR, where you've never wiped before, a wipe seems like obscene. It's like, how could you not do this? You don't even know why, though, because you don't understand the fight whatsoever. But it seems ridiculous, and you leave like, oh, God, this was outrageous. But now we're seeing exactly how many mistakes are getting made at the top end, and how they're getting fixed, and how guilds are communicating and talking, and discussing things, and making sure everybody's 100% on what's supposed to happen and when. I think it's a big change for the game. But what makes me kind of angry about the whole thing is some of those same guys are telling me, why do I bother with such shitters, while the shitters are sponging this information in and trying their hardest and overcoming challenges that they've never had the chance to do before. While simultaneously at the top end, you guys are making the same mistakes. Sure, you'll make less of them. There's no doubt about that. You'll make less of them and you'll do more damage, but most of that comes down to gear ultimately, as we know. If you're just dripping in high level gear, guess what? You do way more damage. I don't know. It's been bothering me since Tomb opened. It's been really bothering me to talk about it. Because it's hard. It's hard to play both sides of the field sometimes, which is what you have to do. And PreachCon was a really nice live version of that, because we had everything from top end Mythic Raiders all the way down to the guys who don't even play WoW anymore. And the kind of questions you get asked are so different all the time. So there you go, there's my rant for today. Okay, there's my rant for today. Thank you all, I'll see you soon. Bye bye.